success of our public schools.
Hi, I'm former Mayor Cyril Dupuis. Education is the foundation of our community and one of our most important responsibilities. Many great and exciting things are happening in our schools, but we need to do better.
I am former Mayor Ray Wazorek. The future of our city depends on every child getting support and finding a pathway to a successful future. With exceptional schools, our community will excel.
I'm former Mayor Ted Gatzis. Our schools are directly linked to the safety of our neighborhoods and the vitality of our great city.
We are Manchester Proud.
Please join us in supporting Manchester Proud, for our students, for everyone who proudly calls Manchester home. Sign up to become a Manchester Proud champion by visiting manchesterproud.org.
This hour on WMNH is proudly sponsored by CGI Business Solutions, located at 171 Londonderry Turnpike in Hooksett. Serving all your employee benefits planning, design and administration, investment and wealth management, and customized business insurance solutions. They are available at 866-841-4600 or on the web at cgibusinesssolutions.com.
You are listening to WMNH-LP, Manchester's radio, broadcasting at 95.3 megahertz frequency modulation from the top of 1000 Elm Street. Our studios are located at 1045 Elm Street and licensed to Manchester Public Television Service in Manchester, New Hampshire, USA. Contact us by email at WMNH953@gmail.com or through our website at WMNHradio.org.
To integrate Berkeley, California public schools almost 2 decades after Brown v. Board of Education.
Because your city council made that decision. It was a local decision.
So that's where the federal government must step in. That's why we have the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act.
This heated exchange between Senator Kamala Harris and former Vice President Joe Biden brought national attention to Biden's history on busing. But what is busing? The term stems from a bitter debate in 1970s America. 20 years after Brown v. Board of Education, there were still areas where little had been done to integrate schools. Some argued the way to fix this was to bus children to schools in different neighborhoods. Today, many civil rights activists say busing played a necessary role in making schools more diverse, even if the way it was carried out was flawed.
In many respects, we sent the kids in to do what the adults wouldn't do. We sent the kids in to integrate the schools because the adults wouldn't integrate the neighborhoods.
I never, ever opposed voluntary busing.
As a freshman senator in the mid-1970s, Biden did oppose federally mandating busing, but his history on the issue is complicated. At the time, Biden downplayed the overt racism of many who opposed busing and argued the government should have a limited role in integrating schools. In a 1975 interview, Biden went as far as to call busing plans, quote, just quota systems, and the most racist concept you can come up with. Republican Senator Edward Brooke from Massachusetts, then the only African-American senator, disagreed with Biden's views. Brooke called one of Biden's amendments, quote, the greatest symbolic defeat for civil rights since 1964. A spokesperson recently said Biden didn't think busing was the right way to integrate schools. Throughout his political career, Biden has worked alongside African-American leaders. He supported the extension of the Voting Rights Act, amendments to the Fair Housing Act, and sanctions against apartheid in South Africa. But in a Democratic Party that has moved to the left and grown more diverse, Biden is being forced to defend his record on race, not always successfully.
Apologize for what?
Cory Booker's called for it.
Cory should apologize. He knows better. There's not a racist bone in my body. I've been involved in civil rights my whole career.
As we saw in the first debate, Biden's career is being viewed through a new and more critical lens in the 2020 election.
I supported the ERA from the very beginning. I'm the guy that extended the Voting Rights Act for 25 years. We got to the place where we got...
Well, if you ask me where I come from, here's what I tell everyone. It's a place that is even more free than Jameis Winston's groceries. It's where the stars and stripes and the eagle fly. You can start the business of your dreams if you pay all of the license fee. I'm a drive by a futon.
Your kids can go sell lemon juice. Yeah, if their license forms have been approved.
That guy's panhandling.
With the stars and stripes and the eagle flies. There's a lady that stands in a harbor for what we believe, overlooking a guy getting arrested for helping sightsee.
It's illegal to show somebody around?
You can pull yourself from poverty. All you need's a bit of elbow grease and 1,200 hours of training, 20 grand.
It's hair braiding.
Yeah, and a permission slip from Uncle Sam.
Unbelievable.
Where the stars and stripes and the eagle fly. Where the stars and stripes and the eagle fly.
You tell me.
Hi, Ivanka. Hi, Daddy. Want to go to Europe for some photo ops? Sure, Daddy.
Nepotism Barbie girl in a nepotism world. Patchy 20, embarrassed myself plenty. I just flipped my hair, intruding everywhere. When I tried, I got a lot of side-eye. Leaders there said I'm an airhead. I'm a blonde bimbo brat, playing pretend diplomat. I dress up, nod my head, take a selfie. This whole trip has been planned to embellish my brand, so I'll get even richer myself, see. Misuse words, I won't curb, like architecting as a verb. Nepotism Barbie girl, watch me as I twirl. Adding nada in my expensive schmata. I don't have a clue what these world leaders do. No time for cramming when I'm Instagramming. Daddy's idol, so entitled. Me, yeah. My commerce is knockoff verses. Photoshopping memes aren't stopping. Me, yeah. As I flaunt it, I'm unwanted. Yeah, it's the same with the defense side in terms of the whole ecosystem. It's very male-dominated. So, see me talk like a ditz, interrupt the big kids like a spoiled girl whose folks should just let shop. I'll reply to those snobs, I create lots of jobs, and so what if they're all in a sweatshop? Nepotism Barbie flake, always on the take. Acting silly in my clothes so frilly, with my knockoff heels and my fake ideals. Hard to miss it when I'm so complicit in my Barbie clothes with my Barbie nose. I'm fantastic, most of me is plastic, so unqualified for each job I've tried. Daddy's princess till it's almost incest. Nepotism girl, watch me as I twirl. Adding nada in a hideously overpriced schmata. I don't have a clue what job I'm supposed to do. No deals I'm closing, I'm too busy posing. Daddy, that was fun. Now can I be Secretary of State, please, Daddy?
Stop talking over me. It's terrible radio. Don't you understand? The guy's trying to run a radio show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Matt Connarton Unleashed. We are live on WMNH 95.3 FM in downtown Manchester, New Hampshire. Hot, but a little less humid than last week, but we are back from our holiday. Of course, last week we were here Monday and Tuesday live, and then the rest of the week was best ofs. But due to the 4th of July holiday, but we are back live on this Monday, July 8th, 2019, on WMNH 95.3. We're not on Comcast 97 at the moment because something is not working. But we are, of course. You can listen on WMNH and online at WMNHradio.org and on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page as well. Already see some folks in there already. Jenny is in there. Paul Hibbard, hello. Fred Bonig from the Daily Ripple joins us in there, as well as Gianna Soares, or Gia, as I know her, the host of Blunt Force, a great show that you can find online. 603-250-6007 is the number to call. 603-250-6007. You can also interact in the Facebook live chat, but would love to hear from you directly at 603-250-6007. So obviously, and we have a call already. Well, people are chomping at the bit after our brief time off there. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
Oh, hello, welcome back.
Well, hello, Eazy-G. Got your theme music, of course.
Get a phone.
Your time is up, my time is now. You can't see me, my time is now. It's the franchise where I'm shining now. You can't see me, my time is now. In case you forgot.
Yes, Eazy-G is on the phone, and his time is now.
The phones were offline this morning when I tried to call.
Oh,
the morning show.
The phones were offline.
And then when I heard the replay a few minutes ago, Peter White said, I don't care if he ever shows up again.
I heard him say that about
you. Just go on the Matt show.
I did hear him say that
about
you.
That wasn't very nice.
That was not very nice.
I see Peter White in the morning.
Well, here's the thing, Eazy-G. I think that...
throw me under the bus.
I think it's time for you to jump ship and become, finally, what you are always destined to be, and that is the entertainment reporter on Matt Connarton Unleashed.
I'm just going to go on tomorrow morning and punish him. Do another entertainment report on his show.
You're going to punish him,
are you? Him. What do you think? That's a good idea, Pat?
Yes, I do. He deserves to be punished. I wasn't sure what you meant there for
a minute.
There you
go. So, he's listening. I'll be on tomorrow morning. I left him a message on his Facebook plate. He doesn't always check his Facebook. So if he's listening now, I'll see him in the morning.
Oh, my goodness.
I had a busy morning, wasn't able to make it in. So I was going to tell him now, but
yeah,
live in the morning, but I couldn't get in.
Right. Well, that's the way it goes. But all right, Eazy-G. But you know the offer still stands.
Have a great show.
All right, Eazy-G. Thank you.
Don't worry, the humidity will be coming back this week.
All right.
Whether we like it or not.
Right. Okay. All right, Eazy-G. Thank you. Bye-bye. I don't know. You know what? I wasn't gonna do this, but I'm gonna go ahead because I think I know right in the show where it was. Let's see if there's something else playing here. Well, what is playing? Sorry, everybody. Hang on a second. I want to. I don't know where that's coming from. I want to play for you the what Eazy-G is referring to there. Let's see. Oh, it's still the I Never Shut Off is Eazy-G's theme music. All right, there you go. Eazy-G, his time is now. I think it's probably after the comments that Peter White made this morning. I think it is time for Eazy-G to finally come aboard officially, Matt Connarton Unleashed, as the entertainment reporter. And I will make this offer, Eazy-G, if you're still listening. I will take whatever Peter White is paying you, and are you ready for this? I will quadruple it and add a zero. There you go. Let's see.
I like their instrumental stuff.
Let's see if I think I know about where Peter made that comment about Eazy-G this morning on the morning show. Let's see.
But I'm telling you, their instrumental stuff.
Oh, and he was talking with Mike Doyle, and Mike Doyle said something very, very nice about me. Was very kind, which makes it. Of course, when Mike Doyle says nice things about me, on another show like that, it makes it that much harder to get upset with him when he calls this show and interrupts and talks over me. So because because I'm a softie, this tough guy radio persona that I have, it's really just it's all an act, my friends. I just I'm a nice guy, so it's hard to get upset with Mr. Doyle when he's says things that are very kind. That he didn't even expect me to hear, probably, but he was very nice on the morning show. Let's see.
Back room? I don't know.
Sounds like is it an adult room?
What's the name
I think it's right after this, and they get into the Eazy-G part
of an album that is the back of it, or the?
Let me go for it a little bit. They had this conversation about classic rock because Mike Doyle was like, "Oh yeah, I saw this great CD set you can buy on television of all this classic rock," and it's like, dude, there's probably like 7 or 8 different classic rock stations on your radio dial. You can hear any of these songs at any given time on your radio. You don't need to buy a CD set, but I digress.
You never heard this kind of song.
They're still talking about that. Let me advance this just a tiny bit. Bear with me.
Should be back this week. Matt Connarton, Unleashed in the Afternoon, will be on today at 4. I think we're all excited to be back.
Think so?
Yeah, well, I know I was. I was like, some people will get up like, oh my God, it's Monday. But I was like, okay, Monday, got to get back on the radio.
What do you think Connarton listens to when he's home?
Oh,
he's into everything.
He's into everything?
That mind goes a million different ways, don't you think?
Yeah, he's a music guy, though.
He is. Oh, yeah.
He's a music guy. He likes, I know he likes the band Kiss.
Does he?
Yeah.
That's his big thing?
Oh, he likes Kiss.
I could see that.
He likes a lot of heavier music. I think he likes a lot of music.
He's a very heavy guy.
He's very heavy. As in
intellectual.
Yes. You think he's
lot going on in
his
that
brain
head.
is heavy.
Right. A lot going on up there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Do you listen to his show a lot?
I do. Well, if I think of it, and I'm around.
Right.
But and it's always got a little edge to it, which is nice.
Oh yeah.
Kind of like this show.
Yeah. I don't know if it has edge.
What happened to Eazy-G?
I don't know. I thought he'd be here today.
MIA?
Yeah, because he's all done his physical therapy.
Oh, he is?
So I just figured he would be here today, but I guess not. Maybe he'll show up on Matt's show.
Oh. Is that a rivalry?
What, me and Matt?
Yeah, you don't care if you lose him, do you?
What, lose
Eazy-G?
No.
What if Matt steals him from you?
That's fine too. That's fine too. You can have them.
No, what's it called? Indian giving? No Indian giving?
No.
If he goes there, he stays there.
Oh yeah. If he goes on today, he's never to set foot in here again. Let's say good morning.
There you have it. That's apparently that's what's got Eazy-G upset. And tomorrow morning he's going to come in here and punish Peter White for his words. That sounded very threatening. Let's back that up and just hear that one more time because that was pretty fun.
Right. I know what a B-side is.
Shannon McGuire is always there.
I went back too far. Sorry. There we go.
I know he likes the band Kiss.
Does he?
Yeah.
That's his big...
Plus, I want to hear Mike Doyle compliment me again and my heavy brain. No, I genuinely appreciated him saying that. That was nice.
A lot of music.
He's a very heavy guy.
He's very heavy. As in
intellectual.
Yes. You think he's...
Lot going on in
his
that
brain
head.
is heavy.
Right. A lot going on up there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Do you listen to his show a lot?
I do. Well, if I think of it, and I'm around.
Right.
But, and it's always got a little edge to it, which is nice.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of like this show.
Yeah. I don't know if it has edge.
What happened to Eazy-G?
I don't know. I thought he'd be here today.
MIA?
Yeah, because he's all done his physical therapy.
Oh, he is?
So I just figured he would be here today, but I guess not. Maybe he'll show up on Matt's show.
Oh. Is that a rivalry?
What, me and Matt?
Yeah, you don't care if you lose him, do you?
What, lose
Eazy-G?
No.
What if Matt steals him from you?
That's fine too. That's fine too. You can have them.
No, what's it called? Indian giving? No Indian giving?
No.
If he goes there, he stays there.
Oh yeah. If he goes on today, he's never to set foot in here again.
There you have it. No wonder Eazy-G is upset. I think his feelings are probably deeply hurt, and he's probably weeping right now. Now, by the way, just a side comment about that, Mike, if you're listening, I don't think we're supposed to say Indian giving anymore. I don't think 20 years ago we were supposed to say that anymore. But that's a minor, suggestion, if you will. But there you have it. It sounds like Eazy-G might be on his way out at the morning show. Peter White, host of the morning show with Peter White. And by the way, thank you again, Peter, for having me on. Last Tuesday of last week, right before we went on our brief holiday break, I had the honor and privilege of being here for the morning show with Peter White, along with the great Paul Cormier. We had quite a discussion, in fact. If you didn't hear it live, of course, it's on WMNHradio.org. But we had quite a conversation about our shared history and how the three of us got to know each other years ago. And there was a lot of conflict back then. Peter White and Paul Cormier were on opposite sides of a bit of a conflict that also involved some other folks as well. So it's quite a story. You should definitely take a listen to that if you didn't get a chance to hear it. But
Ryan Gorman?
Yes, Virtual John Hopwood. Ryan Gorman was involved as well. He wasn't here on the show with us, but he was involved in the original conflict. But yeah, so that was on the July 2nd episode of the morning show. So, and of course, now we're all friends. But yes, quite the history that we have. But it does sound like Peter White does not value the entertainment reporting services of Eazy-G, Eric Gagnon. And so, you know what? I'm going to up the ante even more. Forget what I said a few minutes ago. Eazy-G, if you're listening, I will take whatever Peter is paying you to be his entertainment reporter and quintuple it and add a zero. There you go. And you know what? The whole thing about you having to spend 7 or 8 minutes at the beginning of each entertainment report discussing the art of French meme, even though that's very important to me, we'll cut that down to 3 minutes. You just have to spend 3 minutes on that, and the rest of it you can talk about whatever. So just something to consider, my friend, because I just don't feel that Peter White values your services the way that I do. Even though you work at Creamland instead of Goldenrod, that's okay too. That's okay. I accept you as you are, Eazy-G, as you are, and I think that should count for a lot. So that's just something to consider. Let's see. In the Facebook live chat, we are joined by Stefan Philbrook. Stefan says, "Loved the All-Star Show on the 2nd. Let me know next time you want to do this. I will, quote, influence people to stay away." That, of course, speaking of folks who don't necessarily value Eazy-G, Stephen Philbrook, because you might remember Eazy-G was planning to be here also for the All-Star Show on Tuesday of last week, and Stephen kind of made a comment on Facebook saying, "I think it should just be Peter, Paul, and Matt." And so Eazy-G did call in to my show the day before when we were discussing this and said, okay, I'm going to stay away. And I challenged Michael Martineau to stay away as well. So, which was very, very respectful of him. Let's see. Jenny in the Facebook live chat says probably someone who still owes Columbia House, LOL. That's a reference to Mike Doyle on the morning show, talking about classic rock and that collection that he saw online. I must tell you just a brief anecdote, and I'm going to leave the name of the individual out of it. It's someone some of you would know, but I'm not going to say who it was. But this was a number of years ago, and I was driving from Concord, where I was living at the time, to Manchester with this individual for a specific business purpose, and said individual unveiled as we're driving down Route 3A from Concord to Manchester this 5-disc set of classic rock, and she was very excited and wanted to know. She had just purchased it earlier that day and wanted to know which disc I would most like to hear. And then she read off to me, like disc 1, there's a Zeppelin song, there's an Aerosmith song, there's a Kiss song. Of course, Kiss is my favorite band. Disc 2, though, it's got some REO Speedwagon. And, so she's describing some of what's on each disc. And she's very excited because she had just bought this and was very excited to play some of it. And I, in my unfailing politeness, I was just like, "Oh, you pick whatever you want to hear. We'll put that in." But in my mind, I'm thinking, what is the point of this? Like, why is she, not to be mean, but why is she excited about this 5-disc, or maybe it was only 3 discs, I don't know. But why is she excited about this set that she bought of classic rock songs? I can turn on the stereo and hear any of these songs on any of the 10 or 12 different classic rock stations that are available in any radio market that you're in. Like, I don't get what the point of this is. It was just, it was baffling to me. It was a very strange moment, but anyway, but we'll move on. We'll move on from that, my friends. So we have some fun tidbits here. I'll give the number again, too, quickly, in case you're just joining us. 603-250-6007. 603-250-6007. Apparently, so remember when Trump went to the UK for that state visit with Britain, and he, got to hang out with the Queen, and of course, Theresa May was very complimentary toward Prime Minister Theresa May, was saying something about, hey, this whole Brexit deal, let's get this done. Maybe I could help you. I'm a master negotiator, and all this stuff. So very complimentary toward the embattled Prime Minister, who is on her way out. And again, I know I say this all the time, but by the way, just a side note about Brexit. My one wish for the people of Britain would be if they could just find a way out of this and maybe have a do-over on that referendum. It's painful to watch them going through this slow motion suicide with this Brexit thing. Just do another, if there's some way to figure it out legally, just do another referendum. And the question on the ballot can be, hey, this whole Brexit thing, are you absolutely sure? Because in case y'all haven't noticed, it's really, really hard, and it's probably going to wreck our economy if we go through with it anyway. So you're really, really, really sure we have to do this Brexit thing? And then hopefully the vote is no. No, we're not sure. No, don't do it. And then they can put this whole thing behind them. Just a side note there. But anyway, Trump was very complimentary toward Theresa May, very encouraging about Brexit, etc. Well, now that relationship has crumbled because if you didn't hear this over the weekend, well, here, this is from Mediaite. Trump blasts Theresa May on Brexit, tweets, "We will no longer deal with British ambassador," after the leaked cables. The British ambassador to the U.S. was apparently some leaked memos indicated some unhappiness with the Trump administration and some somewhat harsh criticisms. And so, I guess Trump figures, well, the buck stops at the top, right? The buck stops with Theresa May. So now he's very upset with Theresa May over this, and will have nothing more to do with her or her ambassador, it would appear. It says here, Trump continued trashing the UK ambassador who trashed him in leaked cables today, declaring the U.S. will no longer deal with him. British ambassador to the U.S., Kim Darroch, I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, D-A-R-R-O-C-K, Darroch? I'm going to go with Darroch, said in these leaked cables, quote, "We don't really believe I would do this," and I feel like I should read this with a British accent, but I will embarrass myself if I do. My British accent is terrible. It ends up sounding somewhat British, somewhat Australian, and somewhat like I'm having a stroke. So I'm just going to not do it. But even though I feel like on some level I should. All right, so, quote, "We don't really believe this administration is going to become substantially more normal, less dysfunctional, less unpredictable, less faction-riven, less diplomatically clumsy and inept," unquote. I don't know about you, but I would take that as some fairly harsh criticism. That's not, these are not encouraging words. These are not the words of someone who's looking at this like, well, there's room for improvement, and I feel like they're trying really hard, but, they just need to kind of do some things to get it together, maybe put together an action plan. Many of you may have worked for employers who are big on action plans or, things like that, a list of bullet points. No, it's not that. It's more just like, wow, they really suck, and they're probably going to keep on sucking, is pretty much the gist of that. So it says here, Trump this afternoon not only hit Derek, but went off on Theresa May for the Brexit quote-unquote mess and said, quote, "The good news for the wonderful United Kingdom is that they will soon have a new prime minister," unquote. He also said, quote, "I do not know the ambassador, but he is not liked or well thought of within the U.S. We will no longer deal with him," unquote. So there you go. And he added, quote, "While I thoroughly enjoyed the magnificent state visit last month, it was the Queen who I was most impressed with," unquote. Ho, burn! Theresa May, you just got served. He didn't even like being around you. He just enjoyed the Queen. So there you go. That's Trump's reaction to that. Not entirely unexpected. And another little Trump tidbit here. And I posted on, I shared this out earlier on Facebook. Oh, hello to Frank Potato, who joins us in the Facebook live chat. I shared this out on Facebook earlier, and I commented that I find this hilarious bigly on multiple levels. Trump posts fake Ronald Reagan quote predicting a Trump presidency. If you're not aware of this little story, no, you heard me correctly. But let me repeat it. Trump posts fake Ronald Reagan quote predicting a Trump presidency. This is real. On June 4th, President Donald Trump ripped actress Bette Midler as a sick scammer for sharing a statement on Twitter falsely attributed to the commander-in-chief. 1 month later, President Trump shared a statement on Twitter falsely attributed to former President Ronald Reagan. By the way, for any Republicans, any conservatives listening who might not remember Ronald Reagan, he was the guy that you were all so very deeply in love with and had such a great reverence for before Trump came along. And now it's all about Trump. Just in case anyone forgets, the patron saint of conservatism, Ronald Wilson Reagan. I've often told this little anecdote, but my mother's second husband, Greg, my stepfather when I was a kid for a time, he was born in Dixon, Illinois, and grew up there. And Dixon, Illinois is the birthplace of Ronald Wilson Reagan. And I don't know how they feel about Trump in Dixon, but I'm guessing that might be the one place on earth where Trump has not entirely displaced and replaced Ronald Reagan in the hearts of Republicans. Because in Dixon, Illinois, and this is true, this is not to be funny, this is absolutely true. Like, the St. Louis Arch? They have that giant arch that looks really cool. I've never been to St. Louis, but I've seen in pictures the arch. In Dixon, Illinois, swear to God, it's this tiny little town. It's not a city, it's a town. It's a very small town. Their big annual event every summer is the Petunia Festival. It's very Mayberry. I'm not making that up. None of this is a joke, by the way. That literally, the Petunia Festival is their big thing. It's a big deal to them, and they take it very seriously, and they're very proud of it. Dixon, Illinois, this little town with no traffic lights, or at least they didn't have any when I was a kid, because I had to spend a few summers there. It was a delight, I assure you. Dixon, Illinois, this tiny little town, when you drive into this tiny little town on their one big road that actually has a double yellow line down the middle of it, there's a giant arch. And it says, "Welcome to Dixon, Illinois, the birthplace of Ronald Wilson Reagan." That's their big... Now, I'm not sure which is a bigger deal to them, it being the birthplace of Ronald Wilson Reagan or the Petunia Festival. I always got the impression that they were kind of on a level playing field because, they were just both a very big deal. But anyway, I'm sure they're still very proud of him there. But I've often speculated, because obviously, because these evangelicals tell us all the time about how God very much loves Trump and chose Trump to be our president, and Trump is the anointed one, and so forth. And I often worry that up in heaven, poor Saint Reagan is a little sad, maybe, because now that Trump is God's favorite president. So, let's see. So Trump tweeted, again, this is from Mediaite. Trump tweeted the quote on Monday morning. Again, the quote of Reagan predicting the Trump presidency. Trump tweeted the quote on Monday morning from an account purporting to represent the Reagan Battalion, a conservative news site. Only the account was phony. It has 7 followers. Oh, 7 followers. Wow, that... And so too was the quote, phony, so too was the quote it tweeted on February 20th, 2017, superimposed over a picture of Trump and Reagan shaking hands. Reagan allegedly said this. This was a quote. "For the life of me, and I'll never know how to explain it, when I met that young man, I felt like I was the one shaking hands with the president," unquote. Now, if you are a MAGA person, you won't understand what I'm about to say. But for the rest of us, when you read something like that, even if it's not fake, even whether Reagan actually said that or somebody made up that Reagan said that, reading those words kind of makes one want to vomit into a bucket. I don't have one handy here, so I had to swallow it back down like a professional. It does burn in the throat a bit. MAGA people, of course, you probably assume, oh, Reagan probably did say that, and to say that he didn't say that is fake news. I don't know. You guys go to extraordinary lengths in your own minds to justify absolutely everything. But for those of us who are a bit skeptical of Donald John Trump, I got to tell you, it's pretty hard to believe that Reagan actually said that. Let me read these words to you one more time. "For the life of me, and I'll never know how to explain it, when I met that young man, I felt like I was the one shaking hands with the president." Hello to Jeremy Rohn, who joins us in the Facebook live chat. He says, hello, hello. I'm reminded of, there is a picture, kind of a famous picture of a very young William Jefferson Clinton shaking hands with, at that time, President John F. Kennedy. And it's a pretty cool picture, and of course it was used a bit as a prop during Bill Clinton's 1992 run for the presidency, as one would expect. Can you imagine? Can you just imagine, right? Bill and Hillary Clinton, they sit down for their big, remember the big 60 Minutes interview that they did after the allegations about Clinton's affair with Jennifer Flowers came out, and they had to go on 60 Minutes together, and Clinton did the whole thing, I've caused pain in my marriage and this and that. Can you imagine if in that same interview, Clinton said, by the way, there's this picture of me shaking hands with JFK, and he said later, I don't know how quite to explain it, but I felt like I was shaking hands with the president. And he attributed those words to JFK. We would all find that rather hilarious, I would hope. Anyway, hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
Oh, hey, this is Eazy-G again.
Eazy-G.
Hey, I was going to tell you that Ronald Reagan...
I didn't want to play your theme again, so I just gave you the air horn. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Ronald Reagan came to my high school back in '82, Goffstown High School.
Did you...
I believe that he was running for president the second time around.
Well, that explains... All right, Eazy-G, well, that explains something, because I heard a story recently that you actually...
myself, who was this guy?
I heard a story that
It
you
was
actually...
trying to get out of class.
I heard that you actually shook hands with Ronald Reagan, and he said that he felt like he was shaking hands with the future entertainment reporter
I was too young
here
to
at
vote for him
WMNH.
because I was only 14.
But
it was still fun. He was still at my high school. I can always tell everybody that he came to my high school.
Right.
Ronald Reagan.
Yes, Ronald Reagan. Very nice.
That's when I kind of started following politics when I was 14. I said, wow, who's this guy? And then
Yes.
started following it ever since.
Uh-huh.
Ronald Reagan's fault.
Yes. Well, very
I've
nice.
got to start somewhere.
That's right. Yes, Eazy-G.
That's my little useless information for the day.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Eazy-G. Bye-bye. I'm going to have to put up a poll, like, who's more aggressive about stepping all over someone's joke, Eazy-G or John Hopwood? I can't figure that out in my own head. I mean, I got it out eventually, but I don't know if anyone actually heard it. Anyway, okay, so it says here, Trump saw fit to pry up this 2-year-old tweet from an inauthentic account and share it with his followers. Let's see. But according to the fact-checking outlet PolitiFact, Reagan never made that comment. Joanne Drake, Chief Administrative Officer of the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute, told PolitiFact that while the photo of the handshake is authentic, the comments are not. Drake told PolitiFact, quote, he did not ever say that about Donald Trump, unquote. Well, I know it's hard to believe, but yes, apparently Ronald Reagan did not make that assessment. So there you go. I thought that was a fun story. We should do a couple things from Right Wing Watch because, hello to Rhonda Ostrowitz-Favero, who joins us in the Facebook live chat. You know, I do so love rightwingwatch.org. It is my favorite website. And, I'm always fascinated by these different theories about why things happen. And, we talk a lot about climate change, and I am someone who believes in climate change and am concerned about it. And one of the counter arguments that I often hear against the idea of climate change is that, no, don't believe it. It's actually, I'm paraphrasing here, but I guess some people think it's actually a conspiracy cooked up by liberals and scientists to try to destroy capitalism or something. Is that what, which really just means that, Republican politicians who get a lot of money from big energy tell you there's no climate change, and then you all just kind of, okay, I guess there's no climate change. Science, what do those scientists know? But, I hear these, it's not unusual to hear people who don't know anything about science trying to explain why all these scientists are wrong and have no idea what they're talking about. But I found a very unique theory, and this is interesting to me for a couple of reasons. I had not heard this theory before. This is, actually, there's two things here. Well, you know what? I don't want to spend too much time on this, so we'll kind of skip the climate change part of this. Maybe we'll come back to it. I want to talk about these floods specifically. There's been terrible flooding in the Midwest, which are being attributed to climate change. And William Koenig, who we have talked about on the show before, and he was a guest on Jan Markle's show, Understanding the Times. It's a radio program. And he claims that the floods were not caused by climate change, but rather they were caused by God. And, typically, my understanding of things from these people, from watching and listening to these people, is that their belief is that God is the actual cause of extreme weather, not climate change, because God is very angry and he needs to punish people. And I was under the impression, however, that God usually does this through hurricanes. In the Old Testament, it was plagues and locusts and things, and now he likes to use the weather. But apparently, it's not just limited to hurricanes. It's limited to, it can include, flooding, which I guess can be caused by hurricanes or just heavy rain. But what is particularly fascinating about this theory to me is the reason. Wait till you hear the reason that God has caused all this flooding in the Midwest. Because I thought that these folks believe that the reason God does all these things, by the way, often to red states, which is very odd to me. Like when you see hurricanes hammering a place like Texas, right? and there's all this destruction, all this extreme weather. It's like, yeah, but that's a red state. Why is God taking it out on a red state? You know, why doesn't God do something calamitous to destroy Hawaii or Massachusetts or Vermont? You know, one of these states that's extremely liberal, right? But it seems like, according to them, the biggest thing that God's upset about is he's really mad at gay people. So he has to bring us all this punishing weather because he's mad about gay people, right? According to Walter Koenig, he's actually punishing the Midwest with flooding because of Jared Kushner's Middle East peace efforts. How's that for a tangled web of theories? So now, you might be thinking, well, wait a minute, though. These people are very pro-Trump. So why would God be punishing the Midwest, red states, with flooding over a member of the Trump administration and his efforts in the Middle East, right? This doesn't make any sense. Well, I'm going to play the audio for you, and we will learn together. Apparently,
you have written a lot about, in one of your books is Eye to Eye, Facing the Consequences of Dividing Israel, and recently...
Actually, here, I'm going to open this up on I'm sorry, I'm going to start that over because I want to open it on a page where I know I can pause it. Because I don't know if y'all have noticed, but sometimes when I play audio like this, I like to chime in with my own pithy comments.
Consequences of Dividing Israel, and recently in your e-newsletter and other places I've heard you comment and read things. We have had just astounding May and early parts of June here, astounding, I would say, weather catastrophes. We've had, I think, 500 tornadoes in just a few weeks. That was back in May. It's sort of one calamity after another. And you feel that some of these calamities have come about because America is messing with God's covenant land, possibly with Jared Kushner trying to divide the land. At the same time, you and I acknowledge Israel's never had a friend like Donald Trump. So how are you connecting the dots here? We got Jared Kushner maybe trying to divide the land. Donald Trump, who's not going to let anything harmful happen to Israel.
Well, I'll get...
Now, and by the way, before we hear his answer to that, I want to remind everybody, I mean, I can't force it, but I like to say the unofficial policy of this show, no matter how insane some of this might sound, let's listen with open minds and, if you can, with open hearts. We're all about love.
The importance of that land, regardless of friend or foe. God gave that land to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and their descendants, and it's not to be divided, parted, parceled, whatever. It's his covenant land. And I've documented 129 events since the perfect storm was sending 30-foot waves into President Bush's home in Madrid, Spain in October 30 of 1991. I've noticed in my studies and history of documenting all these events, when we've had Midwestern floods, that's been the period of the most active effort in the peace process. There's been 5 different summers over the last 27 years that there has been massive flooding, and at the very time our White House administrations were very active in the peace process at that time. This last month, the month of May, had 500 tornadoes, record floods, record storms, and Kushner was very active. He was in Jerusalem, he was in Brussels, he was having meetings with Middle East leaders in preparation for the January 25-26 conference.
Now, let me just interrupt and interject for a moment. There's an old saying, correlation is not causation. However, this clearly, I mean, I was skeptical, but I think he's on to something. I mean, obviously the two things are connected, clearly.
About rain. So his whole month of May was very active. They acknowledged the date. They invited everybody. He had these key meetings with NATO leaders, Israeli leaders, Middle East leaders, and all of this was taking place in the heartland of America as the heartland of Israel is being discussed.
Well, very interesting, and yet, as I said,
and that's the connection. The heartland of Israel, the heartland of America. That's how it's. I'm sure it's somewhere in the Bible. That's how God operates. You mess with the heartland of Israel, he's going to flood the heartland of America, which, I mean, the flooding, it's very sort of Old Testament. Maybe he's getting back to his roots. I don't know. But that's just how it works. It all makes perfect sense. I mean, who could argue with any of this, really? I mean,
Emphasize and re-emphasize, I cannot fathom the president allowing anything to happen that's going to harm the nation of Israel, her boundaries, her borders, her people. I could be very wrong, but I just have a hard time seeing that happen.
Well, I agree with that. I definitely agree, and that's what your good friend Michelle Bachmann and others, we've contacted the White House.
Yes,
addressed
I
one
know
of the
you have.
programs. We've been involved. They're aware of what we're saying. They're aware of the message. They're aware of the importance of the covenant land of Israel from a biblical perspective. So the Lord has definitely opened those doors for Michelle, myself, thanks to Michelle, to be able to get this message to the administration, and I think they are very well aware of it.
Well, there you go. Boy, that's pretty compelling. We'll just circle back briefly to the other thing here. Right Wing Watch, this article, religious right commentators suggest climate change is a Trojan horse and a religion. I'll just read a little bit of this quickly because the audio on this one's a bit long. But it says here, following the Democratic debates last month, Kenneth Copeland's Believers Voice of Victory Network. By the way, Kenneth Copeland, you might remember, he's the guy with the, the big jet airplane and the reporter. We did a whole segment. It's up on YouTube as its own thing. About this. The reporter from Inside Edition approached Kenneth Copeland and was basically like, hey, don't you think you're kind of fake and phony with your your multi-million-dollar jet airplane and you're living this life of luxury? And then Kenneth Copeland is, if you've never seen Kenneth Copeland and you don't know who I'm talking about, you owe it to yourself, not right now, but you owe it to yourself to go on YouTube and look this guy up. He's right out of Central Casting. He is such a caricature of the megachurch televangelist. If you were casting a movie, a comedy, and you needed an actor to be a super wealthy televangelist who flies around in a very expensive jet and is just completely fake with all the obviously this Christianity that he doesn't actually believe in, it's just a business to him. You wouldn't need to hire an actor. You could just hire Kenneth Copeland to be himself. I mean, he literally is that guy. Like, unless you've actually seen him and heard him talk, you have no idea. Like, he literally is that guy. It's incredible. Just like he's like a cartoon character. And during his interactions with the reporter from Inside Edition, he actually starts hitting on her. Telling her, saying things like, I love your eyes, by the way. And, you've got to see it if you haven't seen it. Anyway, so his name shows up in this. So following the Democratic debates last month, Kenneth Copeland's Believers Voice of Victory Network, which is an awkward name, Believers Voice of Victory. That doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, does it? Clearly that name was not divinely inspired. This network held special programs featuring right-wing activists offering their commentary and analysis. During the America Stands analysis and commentary, after the second round of the most recent Democratic presidential debate, host Gene Bailey asked, "What's the big deal about climate change?" And guests Buddy Pilgrim of Integrity Leadership and Pastor Greg Stevens suggested that climate proposals put forth by Democratic candidates were an attempt at the, quote, redistribution of wealth, and that climate change is a religion for such candidates. Again, redistribution of wealth. So, like I said, it's the larger narrative among deniers is it's all cooked up. It's a conspiracy between liberals and scientists to wreck capitalism, which is silly for all kinds of reasons. So it says here, according to Pilgrim, those who, quote, worship the creation more than the creator, unquote, I don't even get what that is supposed to mean, do not understand that there is, quote, not really anything to reverse, unquote, when it comes to climate change. Well, that's probably true, and that it's probably too late to reverse it. I've read some things, and, not to be a downer here. Oh, hello to Tony Petrello, who joins us in the Facebook live chat, who says, hey, Matt, I've read some things, and not recently, but over the years, there are some scientists who will tell you, because I know, people like AOC and others have said, keep pointing out that, look, there's this study that says that, we have 10 to 12 years to do something significant on this, or it will be irreversible. And then, of course, the deniers take that, and their strategy is to caricature everything. So then you've got all the climate change deniers going around saying, oh, AOC says that the world's going to end in 10 years if we don't do something. And it's like, no, she's not saying that. The study isn't saying that. Nobody's saying the world is going to end in 10 years. What they're saying is we have 10 to 12 years to try to do something about this before it is absolutely irreversible. That is not the same thing as saying the world is going to end in 10 years. But like I said, that's their strategy, is to caricature everything and try to make it as silly as possible. That's why you've got a dumbass showing up on the floor of the Senate or the House, I don't even remember who the guy was, with a snowball in the middle of winter saying, oh, look, I've got a snowball here, so clearly there's no such thing as climate change. And then all the dummies who vote for him go, yeah, that's right. Look at how smart. Oh, he really fooled all those liberals and scientists, didn't he? He showed them. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But anyway, I don't even remember where I was going with that. By the way, I just a comment regarding AOC. If I knew absolutely nothing about politics, if I had never paid attention to politics a single day in my life, and I just decided one day I was going to educate myself with a crash course in politics by watching a couple of hours of cable news. At the end of that couple of hours, one of the conclusions I probably would have drawn was that AOC was the most influential and important politician in the history of the country, particularly if I had subjected myself to a couple of hours of Fox, because they are obsessed with her. And the Green New Deal and all that. It's like, I mean, she's a bigger boogeyman to the right than George Soros is at this point. George Soros, who is now opened a think tank with the Koch brothers. But we talked about that last week. But very interesting development. Oh, let's see. So later, I remember where I was going before. Let me just say this quickly. The thing about it being too late, I have read articles over the years where some scientists have already said, look, there is some guesswork here. We're hopeful that we can do some things to reverse this, but it is very likely that it is just too damn late, and we don't know what the actual long-term consequences are going to be in terms of the severity. But look, I'm no scientist, so I can get it over my head on this stuff really quick. But one of the things I've been reading about is, we put the, is it CO2? We put it out into the atmosphere through pollution, and then it takes quite some time for it to sort of come back down and really affect us and affect the atmosphere. And so one of the problems with this long term is we keep putting more and more and more out there. So there's some of this which is going to affect us in the future no matter what, that we can't do anything about. And we continue to put it up, and it's going to continue to come back down with greater and greater severity and effect on our climate. And the upshot of it being, basically, there are some scientists in the field of climatology. And I know if you're a denier, you think they're all just fools, and what do they know about science? These dumb scientists, climatologists, they think they know something about the climate. But anyway, but to the rest of you, I will say this: not to be a downer, but we may already be screwed. Some scientists do believe that we're already screwed, and this is only going to continue to accelerate. And yes, the day will come, hopefully not in our lifetimes, but the day will come when the Earth will, in fact, be uninhabitable. And we're already on that track. And sorry about your grandchildren. But this is coming no matter what. Now, I don't know. I'm not saying I believe that necessarily, because, again, I'm saying that this is a theory that some scientists have. But there are some scientists who believe, yeah, it's already too damn late. Sorry. Let's see. So then Pilgrim went on to say, quote, and by the way, this is an example, right? Because if you're not a climate change denier, if you're someone who is genuinely concerned about climate change, you know that we often have to endure conversations with people who don't know anything about science, who have convinced themselves that the scientists are wrong because the politicians they vote for have convinced them that the scientists are wrong. So then they go around talking about science when they don't actually know anything about science. So he goes on to say this, quote, even if we put more carbon dioxide into the air, what do plants have to take to survive? That's right, carbon dioxide. So they take CO2 in and they produce oxygen. God created a system that manages and keeps this in balance. It's impossible for one to get out of balance with the other. If we had a more oxygen-rich atmosphere, then it would benefit us, but it would ultimately cause other things like plants to decrease, unquote. So don't worry about the what are the numbers? I don't even know the numbers. Thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of species on this planet that have gone extinct or are in the process of going extinct because the ecosystem on the planet that we continue to degrade and destroy can no longer support them. You know what? Don't worry about that. So what? So what? Everything's going extinct. God created a perfect system. Of course, he's God, and everything he does is perfect. It's a perfect system. It all balances out. All those species that have gone extinct, must be part of God's plan. Don't worry about it. Sure. Let's see. Guest Stephen Strang. Oh, that's a familiar name. We've talked about him on the show before. Founder of, Inhofe. Thank you, Fred. It was, Inhofe was the guy who brought the snowball onto the floor of the Senate and said, what do you mean global warming? I have a snowball here. I don't know what makes me angrier, that somebody like Inhofe does that and thinks that'll work, or the fact that it actually does work. And then all the idiots who voted for a guy like that sit there and go, yeah, that's right. Guest Stephen Strang, founder of Charisma Media, suggested that climate change is the, quote, Trojan horse that has booted the door for the government to control everything, unquote. Yeah, again, that's their larger narrative. It's liberals conspiring with scientists to enact socialism, I guess, and have the government take over. Strang later said that this is just another attempt by the Democrats to advance their agenda of socialism in the U.S. So, by the way, this raises a question in my mind. So back in the days when Republicans, some, not all, but there was a time period when a lot of Republicans also believed in climate change. Were they at one point a part of that agenda for the government to take over and control everything, and then they just decided, no, we can't do it? I mean, what happened there? What changed? Now, if we're really being honest about it, we already know the answer. I mean, look, Newt Gingrich, right, who is a brilliant guy, very, very smart, fundamentally evil in some ways, but very, very smart. I mean, he's someone I would regard as a true conservative intellectual, just in terms of his brain power. But, yeah, he was one of those Republicans, by the way, at that time who said, back in the 1990s, who said, hey, we all better wake up to this. This is happening. And there were some other, smart Republicans of his ilk who also said, yeah, this is happening. Now what happened is, in reality, of course, big energy, the energy sector, big oil, big coal, all of them, all the big polluters, came knocking on the doors of these Republicans and said, hey, we're not going to continue to give you money if you're going to continue to make statements that might damage our industry. And then, of course, all these Republicans then said, oh, okay, no, we don't really believe in climate change. That's a bunch of silliness. And, that's literally what happened. That's how our system of government works. Okay, to wrap up their rant on climate change, Pilgrim added that carbon-based fuels are the, quote, single largest contributor to the prosperity of mankind in the history of this earth, unquote. Pilgrim expressed his frustration with Joe Biden's proposal to have 100% electric vehicles by 2030, describing this plan as an impossible task and a pipe dream that would, quote, put hardship on the economy and people, unquote. Now, if we're just a comment about that, and I know we should, it's the top of the hour, so we'll take a break in a moment, but, you know, this whole idea that, well, you can't, you can't start to phase out or cut back on certain industries and try to usher in green energy because you'll wreck the economy. I don't think you have to be an economist to really think that through and figure out it doesn't make a lot of sense because, first of all, the economy is always going through changes and there's always shifts. Look, a lot of industries have come and gone over the years, you know. I'm sure at one point there were many companies in this country and around the world that were very successful manufacturing typewriters. But guess what? That went away. There certainly were many companies very successful manufacturing cameras and camera film, you know, like Polaroid and so forth. And then they either adapt or they go away. That's just how the economy works. Eventually, we might get to a point where big oil begins to go away, big coal begins to go away, other things begin to go away, as other industries that are more environmentally friendly, that are quote-unquote green, begin to expand and develop and prosper and create jobs. And so you're losing jobs with these sectors. Well, I don't want to say sectors of the economy, but these industries within the energy sector of the economy that go away, and you're replacing them with other jobs because you're always going to need energy. So if you're not getting it from one place, you're getting it from another. So as the green economy, as we sometimes call it, begins to expand and prosper, you know, out of necessity, frankly, that's going to create jobs. This is a very basic economic concept that, again, I always say, I'm not an economist. I'm not even good at math. I failed college accounting the first time I took it, okay? But this is basic stuff that anyone can understand. You know, sometimes things have to go away because they get replaced by other things that are better, you know? That's why typewriters had to go away. That's why cameras had to go away. That's why all kinds of other stuff has had to go away because it gets replaced by newer stuff that's better. And there's nothing wrong with that. So it drives me nuts when I hear the deniers talk about, well, you know, if you cut back on the use of oil and you cut back on the use of coal and you do this and you do that, you're going to hurt the economy. You're moving things around. You know, you're not. As it is, we've got plenty of jobs. It's not like if you get, you know, Trump's always crowing about how low unemployment is, and he's right. So, you know, if you do get, you know, and by the way, these jobs in the energy sector, see, and here's the other part about this. It makes their whole argument, so ludicrous. These jobs in the energy sector are going away anyway. They're going away anyway. Whether you make changes in the energy sector or not, the jobs are going away anyway. These coal mining jobs, for example, like when Trump said, oh, we're going to bring back big coal. Hillary said she's going to take away your coal jobs. No, we're going to bring them back. He hasn't brought back any jobs in coal. Those jobs are going away anyway, and they should, because of automation. And that genie is already well out of the bottle. We had the guys from Abstract Transmissions here, from the Abstract Transmissions podcast. And one of the things Mark Smith talks about is the job apocalypse, as he calls it, or jobs apocalypse, that is eventually going to come because of automation. As automation continues to speed up, and AI and whatnot. So those coal mining jobs are going to go away whether we stop using coal or not. So if you think you're saving anyone's job by insisting that we keep big coal up and running and prosperous or what. I mean, I'm sorry, but, we can pretend all we want to, because some people like to pretend that, all our jobs have been outsourced overseas, and that's why we have no jobs, even though we have plenty of jobs because unemployment is rock bottom. But, the narrative shifts. There's certain people of an ideological perspective who just shift the narrative whenever it suits them. So they will tell you in one breath, well, look at how great the unemployment rate is. We have all these jobs. Unemployment is so low. Oh, but you know why we don't have any jobs anymore, right? Because we shipped them all overseas and we outsourced everything. That's why we have no jobs. Even though we have plenty of jobs, we have more jobs than people to fill them. But we sent all our jobs overseas and now we have no jobs. I mean, it is mind-bending if some of these, the way politicians or just ideologues generally operate. They'll change the narrative mid-sentence just to suit whatever. Because if you've signed up for a team, and I'm not just picking on Republicans with that, there's plenty of examples of where liberals do it too. And this is why, one of the many, many reasons why I'm an independent. When you sign up for a team, on the left or the right, whoever you're talking to and whoever you've chosen to believe in, they can do that kind of thing shamelessly and obviously. And as long as you're on their team, you won't even notice it because you just want to agree with whatever they say because you're on the same team as them, right? But the truth is, outsourcing is only a small part of what has all these jobs that have allegedly gone away. That's a very small part of it. The big part of it is automation, advances in technology, and you're not going to stop that, nor should you. Those coal jobs should go away. They should. I mean, when Trump campaigned, what was it, in West Virginia? I want to say West Virginia. Oh, hello to Kristen Warner in the Facebook live chat. When Trump campaigned in West Virginia, he's like, no, Hillary said she's going to take away these jobs. I'm going to make sure you still have these jobs. No. You want those jobs to go away. You want machines doing those jobs. You want robotics doing those jobs. You want AI doing those jobs. You know why? Because a robot doesn't end up with black lung disease at the end of a 20 or 30-year career in a damn coal mine. That's why. Because it's a terrible job that nobody should have to do. You want those jobs to go away and be replaced with jobs that don't make you physically ill, so that when you finally get to your retirement, you're not literally, because this is what happens to these people, so that when you finally get to your retirement, you're not literally coughing up dust, coal dust, out of your lungs. That is actually what happens to these people. You want those jobs to go away. You want jobs that make you sick, that give you all kinds of illnesses. I met someone recently who, not locally here, but in another city. I'll leave the name of the city out of it, but I met someone who worked for the Public Works Department in another city here in the state, who was telling me about the cancer rates of his employees who work in the public waste department. And guess what? The people who work in the public waste department in that city, quite a few of them end up with cancer at a young age. So if those are if the things that they're doing are things that can be done through automation with robotics, then great. We can let those jobs go away, and they're gonna go away anyway, whether you like it or not, and you should like it. It's a good thing. Jobs that make us sick should go away. Let's see. We're well past the top of the hour, so we will take a break. I had something I wanted to play. I'm just looking for it now because now I'm not sure where I put it. I loaded a bunch of new tunes into this. Maybe. No, I don't want to play. Oh, no, I didn't play that already, did I? No, I did. Oh, shoot. Okay. No, I know what it is now. I remember now. Forgive me. So we will take a quick break. This is Matt Connarton Unleashed, and we're live on WMNH 95.3 FM in downtown Manchester. Of course, streaming at WMNHradio.org and on Facebook via Facebook Live on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page. When we come back, I'm going to share something fun. Oh, Jenny in the Facebook Live chat says, just like mercury thermometers. Yeah, remember when we all found out about that? That was, I remember that being in the news about what those will do to you. All right, here we go. This is another new song from Parody Project that I really like. It's they've added a new verse to the national anthem. This was, they released this on the 4th of July, but we're not that far removed from the 4th. So hope everyone had a great 4th, by the way. I forgot to say that at the top of the show. You're kind of supposed to do that when you come back after a holiday, after a long weekend. Oh, hope everybody had a great holiday and a great long weekend. So I was remiss in my, you know what it is? I got distracted by the whole Eazy-G drama. Eazy-G. I'm very confident, more so than ever, that we can poach him and get him to be the entertainment reporter here on Matt Connarton Unleashed. All right, here we go. Listen to this. This is pretty good.
With our banner raised high, we must ponder a choice. Those who truly are free offer freedom with grace. Those who truly are brave will invite every voice, no matter their creed and no matter their race. For this flag bears the theme of our country's great dream. If we follow its course, then our past we redeem, and then we shall witness the flag of our land as the truth and the power of the founder's great plan.
Welcome back, everybody. We are well in hour number 2, Matt Connarton Unleashed. We're live on WMNH 95.3 FM, streaming at WMNHradio.org and on Facebook via Facebook Live on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page. That was a little bit of a quicker break than usual, but I just have a lot that I want to get to. And, you know, because we were off for several days, of course. We were live on Monday and Tuesday, and then we had Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off. So it looks like Fred sent me something I can play later. But I want to share with you something from Reason.com that I'm going to have a couple of. I'm going to let most of this play through, but on this video. But I have a couple of comments that I'm going to interject with along the way. So there is a libertarian politician who won an election in California recently, and I don't particularly, just like I don't consider myself necessarily a liberal or a conservative. I don't. Sometimes people try to peg me as kind of a libertarian in some ways, and in some ways I am. But my argument is I'm a libertarian in the same way that I think everybody's a libertarian to some extent. They just don't necessarily think of it that way because no matter where you fall on the political spectrum, whether you're liberal or conservative or anywhere in between, chances are the government is currently doing or is endeavoring to do things that you would prefer the government keep its nose out of. Like if you're a liberal, you'd prefer the government keep their hands off of your reproductive rights. And if you're a conservative, you'd prefer the government keep their hands off of your guns, just as a couple of examples. And so everybody's, I think, more libertarian in ways that they necessarily realize. But I've always made the argument that libertarianism has just in common with liberalism as it does with conservatism. Because I think I certainly know here in New Hampshire, and I think this is probably the case, everywhere, is that the libertarians here certainly, typically, not 100% of the time, but typically, they infiltrate the Republican Party, and they will often run. Actually, we're going to have Friday here on the show, in fact, we're going to be joined in studio by Brandon Finney, who's a former state legislator who, if I have it right, he had run as a Republican, but then he switched, when he was he switched to Libertarian, officially on paper, but he is a Libertarian. And, I've always said, if you go down the line, issue by issue, there are just as many examples of where libertarianism does intersect with liberalism as it does with conservatism, whether it's marriage equality or immigration or reproductive rights. I have met pro-life libertarians, but I don't think that many. I think they tend to be pro-choice. And a whole bunch of things. A lot of social issues. The war on drugs. Ending the war on drugs. There are quite a few issues where libertarianism and liberalism are aligned, and conservatives actually end up being the odd men out. So I would like to see, ideally, as an independent and as someone who, and we're going to talk about not only this gentleman whose story I'm about to share with you via this video, but we're also going to get to, in a couple of minutes, Justin Amash, another guy who I think I probably have very little in common with ideologically, but he's fighting the good fight against the two-party system, because one of the things that I've sort of made I don't want to say my life's mission, but it sounds a little silly to say it that way, but I am actively trying to throw as many rocks as I can at the two-party system, because I think so much of what is wrong with our political system is the result of this binary two-party system where, you have to, more often than not, pick between two terrible choices. And you have to decide which choice is the less awful. And millions and millions of people have been convinced of this self-fulfilling prophecy that, well, you only have two choices, so you got to pick one or the other. It's like a friend of mine said once, well, you've got Coke and Pepsi. That's it. Those are your two choices. You have to pick between one of the two, to which I then say, really? Because growing up, I remember drinking some RC Cola, and I liked it. So, no, you don't just have two choices. People only believe they have two choices because people believe they only have two choices. You have all kinds of choices. That was one of the heartbreaking things about 2016, by the way. If there was ever a moment for independent third-party candidates to have a shot at the big prize, that was it. Well, not the only moment. I shouldn't say it that way. But there was an opportunity there, right? You had two candidates in Trump and Hillary with incredibly high negatives, who, the people who actually decide these elections, who are the independents, by the way, they're people like me who really decide these elections. That might sound grandiose to say it that way, but I mean, the reality is, if you're a Republican, you're probably going to vote for the Republican candidate, and if you're a Democrat, you're going to vote for the Democratic candidate. There are exceptions in history, of course. We've all heard about the Reagan Democrats, and we all know that some Republicans really liked Bill Clinton. But generally, you're going to vote for your party, not the person. Most people do that. They vote for the party, not the person. So, and the person can be a big bag of blank, and it doesn't matter. As long as they have an R or a D, whichever is your letter of preference after their name, that's who you'll vote for. We've certainly seen that proven. So, to be somewhat indelicate. But it's, like I said, it's a self-fulfilling thing. You can have other options, but in 2016, I voted for Gary Johnson, but I didn't do so with a tremendous amount of pride, because he really kind of let me down in some ways. And, I've always said, that in 1992, I think Ross Perot could have pulled it off. 92 was the first election that I was old enough to vote in. And those of you who remember 92, of course, Perot was doing very well, and he was actually polling higher than both George H.W. Bush and Bill Clinton. Perot was doing really well. And then he completely flaked out and got out of the race for reasons that were inexplicable. Like, nothing he said about it really kind of made sense. It was all very bizarre. And then he was so publicly shamed that he ended up getting back into the race. And I personally am convinced that if he hadn't just weirded out like that and gotten out, if he had just stayed in all the way through, I think he could have won. And I think we could have had an independent president. And as it was, I think he got like, 19% of the vote. So as an independent candidate, he did very, very well. My dad in 1980, this was one of my first political memories. I mean, I was just a little guy. But I always say I got interested in politics at an unhealthily young age. And my dad in 1980 voted for John Anderson, who was the independent candidate. He didn't want to vote for Reagan or for Carter, so he voted for John Anderson, who I think was the Fair Vote Party was the name of the party, the independent party that Anderson, had run on. But independents can win. Angus King of Maine is an example of that, both as governor and as senator, as an independent. He's been able to win elections. Jesse Ventura, of course, Jesse the Body Ventura. I'm a lifelong wrestling fan, as some of you probably know, but, he won the governorship of Minnesota as an independent. And there are other examples. So it can be done. But this guy, Jeff Hewitt, I'm going to play some of this video for you. So he ran for an office in California and won. And he says some really interesting things about how he did it and how he managed to appeal to both Republicans and Democrats. And I want to share this with you. And this is kind of I do this as just kind of a reminder for those of you, because I know you're out there, those of you who are Republicans or Democrats who just feel like, well, I'm somewhat disenchanted with the herd that I've chosen to run with, and I'm definitely not going to go to the other side, but what's the point of voting for independents? They can't win. Again, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The only reason we continue to vote in this binary way is because everyone believes that's the only thing you can do. And if we could all just stop believing the lie, we could affect some real change in this country and break this two-party system apart. But anyway, so I want to share some of this with you. This is from Reason.com.
Riverside County Supervisor Jeff Hewitt is a successful pool construction entrepreneur turned politician, one of 4 elected officials governing an area of California with a population of 2.4 million and the most powerful public official in America affiliated with the Libertarian Party.
I always think about, is it hurting somebody? Is there something I can do to lessen the inquisition of the government and have it instead defend our rights like it's supposed to?
At a recent meeting of the Board of Supervisors, when a bill to regulate the sales of home-baked goods came up for discussion, Hewitt dissented.
I remember back in the 50s and early 60s, my mother would make apple pies for Law's Coffee Shop up in Oak Glen. So back then it wasn't a problem. I think most of the people around Oak Glen made them for the restaurants. And I don't think anybody ever died from that.
My background comes from starting my own business when I was 19, just digging swimming pools. Eventually I got to building pools, but the things I learned about that were to get through the tough times, bring in my budget, and in those really great times, still put some stuff away so I could survive to see the next day.
Before he was elected to his county seat in November 2018, Hewitt was mayor of the town of Calamasa, where he cut ties with the state fire agency because it was charging too much.
It's common knowledge around electeds, nobody goes against fire because that's political suicide. So I basically was able to convince my colleagues over there that don't worry about getting reelected, let's do the right thing.
In 2018, Hewitt, whose largest donor was Libertarian tomato magnate Chris Rufer, spent less than half the money campaigning than did his union-backed establishment Republican opponent, and won anyway. He says that the Riverside County Libertarian Party has seen a 42% spike in registration since his victory.
The nice thing about being a libertarian is we could reach out to the Democrats on a lot of things, especially the social issues that we agreed on, and we could also reach out to the Republicans on a lot of the fiscal and regulatory issues. So it put us in a really good place, and this is what I think a lot of libertarians don't understand. We are the great consensus builders and peacemakers, and we need to go ahead and market that.
So I want to stop there. I will play the rest of the video, but I just want to kind of focus on that for a second. So, you know, he's talking about appealing to both sides and being the... This is the thing that, you know, I say this to people, and sometimes people roll my eyes when I say this, but libertarianism, I really think, is in many ways occupies the center. Some people have this sort of caricatured idea of libertarians as being the fringe. And it's like, no, in many ways, because on the one hand, you know, and there are examples, by the way, where libertarians, I get it. I do understand why some people might think that. There are examples where libertarians maybe do seem that way. But, you know, so many people I hear who are independents, like myself, will say, what is a common thing that you'll hear people say? I'm fiscally conservative, socially liberal. I hear people say that all the time. Very often I hear Republicans and Democrats say that who put a sort of a caveat on their, well, not caveat's not the right word, but a qualifier on their party designation. You know, you'll hear someone who describes themselves as a liberal Republican or someone who describes themselves as a conservative Democrat. They will say, well, you know, I'm socially liberal, but fiscally conservative. That's what libertarians tend to be. So this is so in other words, if you're a libertarian or some other kind of independent, that's how, you know, you can, if you're a candidate, that's really how I think you should be marketing yourself, is to say to voters, look, if you want a centrist, I'm the centrist here. If you don't want an extremist, if you don't want someone who's hard left or hard right, you know, I'm not the fringe candidate. I'm the centrist in actuality.
Its district is historically Republican, but has skewed Democrat in recent years, something he says he was able to capitalize on to best his opponent.
One of the biggest mistakes that libertarians make is to think that Democrats are harder to persuade than the Republicans are. Now, on social issues, criminal justice reform, we're right there with them. We've already made a connection there. A little bit tougher is to say, look, you want to go ahead and make people's lives better economically. Let me show you how free market systems have worked for me. Don't even need to use the word capitalism. But that sell is a little bit easier, believe it or not, than people think. On our board, we have 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. I'm a libertarian. It allows me to not only build a consensus, but when there's very contentious issues, I can be that swing vote too. So being a libertarian is the most important thing to me, and it's who I am.
And to aspiring Libertarian Party politicians, Hewitt's advice is to pick winnable races and focus more attention on the basics, like public speaking and social skills.
Take Toastmasters and get to know how to speak in public and also make friends. Like me, get appointed to a planning commission. You make friends there, relationships. You start building trust in the community. And now people don't care if you're a libertarian or whatever you are. You're going to be someone that they're going to have an easier time voting for.
But by the way, it just occurs to me, so he talks about getting appointed to a planning commission. That's got to be a libertarian's nightmare. Any kind of planning commission or a zoning board or anything like that, because then you're walking into this you're walking into this construct of people who basically believe it's their job to find excuses to say no to anything that anyone actually wants to do, right? I mean, that is the point of these planning commissions and these zoning boards and all that kind of stuff. It's like, what are they actually planning for? It's like their whole thing is to justify their own existence by just saying no to everything. At least that's what I've seen. And try to make sure that no actual development happens because otherwise, if they say yes to stuff, then what are they even there for, right? So they have to justify their positions by finding excuses to say no to things, and that's sort of where that whole, NIMBY thing comes from, right? Not in my backyard, oh, you want to build something that's going to, help the community and create jobs and stimulate the local economy. Yeah, you can build that if you want to, just not in my backyard. I'm afraid it might negatively affect my property values, which is a legitimate concern, I suppose, but it might help your property values if there's actual economic development going on in the community. Or there's an even newer one that I've heard since NIMBY. I don't remember where I heard this, but it's Banana, which is build absolutely nothing anywhere near anything. Banana. But anyway, here's the rest of this.
But despite his electoral success, Hewitt still faces considerable opposition from his fellow board members on several core issues. He dissented from an agreement the board reached with the Service Employees Union that he believed would ultimately bankrupt the county. Others on the board, including conservative Republicans, voted for the agreement.
I sincerely respect the issues being raised by my colleague, Supervisor Hewitt. He's right on the money. We have to start somewhere, and I just don't think that it starts with our going after our employees. I think it starts up here at the dais, going after the bigger picture issues that we face today.
But Hewitt believes that if he sticks with his principles, he'll inspire other libertarians to join him in the fight.
Pick a race that you can win. A lot of these local races, they're actually still very powerful, but they don't cost a lot of money. In 2 to 4 years, maybe 10 years, all of a sudden you're in a very, very impactful position. You can really make a lot of big changes. Then it won't be so lonely for me.
There you go. I did share the link to that in the Facebook live chat too, if you want to check that out. Check out the video that goes with it. Oh, hello to Mike Egan in the Facebook live chat. Mike says, better camera view. Yeah, I started using this camera angle. I resisted it for a long time. Hello to Ed Murphy in the Facebook live chat. Yasmin Haji, forgive me if I'm saying that wrong, says hi. Hello to Wayne Noel in the Facebook live chat. You can, of course, opine in there, or if you'd like, we've got about 25 minutes left. 603-250-6007 is a number to call. 603-250-6007. So as long as we're talking about all this third-party stuff, I did mention his name earlier, Justin Amash, and I had shared this out earlier. This is also from Reason.com. Now, Justin Amash is somebody who I would not have expected to see as any sort of an ally because Justin Amash, and look, full disclosure, I didn't know a lot about him until relatively recently. He's the lone Republican who decided to come out as an individual who has read the Mueller report and concluded that the president should be impeached. I didn't really know that much about him prior to that. Now, what I did know is that the congressman is part of what is known as the Freedom Caucus in the House, and the Freedom Caucus is really just kind of the Tea Partiers 2.0, and so the Freedom Caucus is. Let me put it this way: I was never a big fan of the Tea Partiers in Congress. For one very, very specific reason. I found them dangerous on one specific issue. When we were going through, and we don't seem to be going through this anymore, and I'm not even sure why, but I'm glad, so I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. But when we were going through this whole routine where it was time for Congress to vote on raising the debt limit, and you had all these Tea Partiers who said, no, we shouldn't raise the debt limit. We should allow the government to go into default. That to me seemed insane, and some of you might remember both on the early days of me doing the show here on WMNH and, of course, on the podcast version of the show that I used to have before being here, I would spend a lot of time railing against these people and talking about how dangerous they were and just marveling at how we managed to elect people in this country who are so confused that they don't understand the difference between the debt limit and the budget, and they think it's the same thing when it's not the same thing. And if you want to cut spending, you have to cut the budget, not the debt limit. If you don't raise the debt limit, but you've allowed the budget to continue unabated and you've continued to spend all this money, it's money already spent. So if you don't raise the debt limit, you risk the country going into default for the first time in the history of the country. If the United States were to default on the full faith and credit of the U.S. government, that would be it would trigger a global economic catastrophe. It would make what happened during the Great Depression and the Great Recession look like a picnic. It would cause an economic Armageddon from which we might not recover in our lifetimes. So I'm not a big fan of the Tea Partiers or the House Freedom Caucus. Now, having said that, I dig this Justin Amash guy. Now, the reason I like him is he has left the Republican Party and is now an independent. So even though ideologically I probably disagree with him on a myriad of things, although he has a libertarian streak in him, so I probably agree with him on some things too. There might be some surprising things where he and I would agree, but he is now actively working against the two parties. See, I know MAGA people probably see him as I know you do. I know you see him as a traitor and you think now he's just working against Trump and he's working against the Republicans. The reality is he's working against the two-party system. And it gets into it in this article, and we'll look at this a little bit. So again, this is from Reason.com. Justin Amash on his break from the GOP. It's not just about Trump. He says partisan power structures have made government reforms impossible. And he's right. And this is what, I talk about this all the time, the way the two-party system, it's an adversarial system, but because by nature it's binary, it's also the two sides that are ideological adversaries actually work together in trying to keep out independence and to maintain their stranglehold on power. The Republicans and Democrats work together in that way. And Amash is a guy who has now stepped outside of that and is trying to actively work against that. And I like that. So it says here, newly independent Michigan Representative Justin Amash spent the holiday weekend attempting to make it clear that his decision to leave the Republican Party was not just about Trump's behavior. It is about a rigidly controlled party system that made discussion and political change impossible. Amash went so far as to tell CNN's Jake Tapper on Sunday that he probably would have left the Republican Party even if Trump hadn't been elected president. I am very skeptical. I find that statement dubious. But, I don't know what's in the guy's mind or heart, so maybe that's true. I find that very unlikely. Because let's be honest, he has self-immolated as far as his political career. He will be primaried in his home state, and he's done. I mean, this is his last term in Congress. I do believe that, unfortunately. I would love to be proven wrong. But so it says here, Amash says that political party power structures have become so entrenched that they keep members of Congress from genuinely participating in the lawmaking process. He said, quote, I don't think there's anyone in there who can change the system. It's pretty rigid. It's top down. It comes down from leadership to the bottom. And over the years, it's gotten more rigid. It's more difficult now to change the process than it was a few years ago, unquote. Amash's comments to Tapper and in a local interview with WZZM, the ABC affiliate in Grand Rapids, Michigan, track with what he wrote in the Washington Post when he declared on Independence Day that he was leaving the Republican Party. And then there is, let me just look at this. I don't know how long this interview is. I mean, if this is just a quick clip, maybe we'll play it. Oh, never mind. It's 25 minutes long. All right. I will drop a link to it in the Facebook live chat for anyone who wants to check it out. But so it says, Amash tells Tapper that he will be running for Congress again as an independent and that he is confident about his chances of remaining in Congress. Again, great for him, but I you know, I hate to say it, but I think he's done. I don't see him surviving this. But it's, you know, courageous. So he's going to run as an independent, and he's confident about his chances of remaining in Congress. By the way, I should say this, because some of you might think, well, Matt, I don't understand. 5 minutes ago, you were talking about independents not being able to win. That's just a self-fulfilling prophecy, and the only reason independents don't win is because we've all decided, we've all been brainwashed into believing we only have two choices. It's a completely self-fulfilling prophecy. The problem with this, though, here with Amash is, while I normally would say, yes, run and try to find a way to win, and I'm still saying that, but in the case of Amash, the problem is how he became an independent. Because the Republican Party is 100% Trump's party now. And again, I'll give you an example, and I know I've said this a million times, but it's such an easy, simple example of how to illustrate this. The Republican Party, for as long as I can remember, was the party of free market economics and the party of free trade and the party that rejected tariffs and protectionism. And then Trump came along and said, nope, no more. We're now the party of protectionism, and we love tariffs. And the entire Republican Party shrugged and said, oh, okay, I guess we love tariffs now. And it's now the party of tariffs. It's now the protectionist party. It is Trump's party. If you are a Republican, whatever Trump says goes. I don't get it, but that's what it is now. Whether you're a voter or whether you are a Republican in Congress, this is just how it is. That's why Justin Amash, for example, is the only Republican in Congress to say, hey, I read the Mueller report. Guess what? There's between 10 and 12 clear instances where he committed obstruction of justice. There's a reason he's the only one. So it is Trump's party now. So in this particular instance, again, I would never discourage him from doing this, but no, I don't believe he can win. I don't believe that. Maybe that's hypocritical of me to say after lecturing everyone about the importance of believing independents can win. But again, it's about the circumstances. It's about how he got here. If you took Trump out of the picture, which, I mean, how could you? But right, because I also don't believe that he would have left the Republican Party anyway, even if it weren't for Trump. I don't believe that. I think he's being a little cute there. But, you know, unless he had already decided to return to the private sector, and so he didn't care if he had put himself in a more difficult position. But even if you took Trump out of the picture and he just said, hey, I don't think I can be a Republican anymore because Republicans aren't libertarian enough and I'm really a libertarian, it's a very, very tough climb. But if he's popular enough in his home state, at least then he would have a shot. Angus King did it in Maine. He could do it in Michigan. But with Trump in the picture, I guarantee you there are so many people in red MAGA hats in the state of Michigan who are so furious with this guy. He will be primaried. He will not be the Republican nominee in the next election in Michigan. That's my prediction. I hope I'm wrong. So current polling shows him losing against a Republican primary challenger, and Michigan allows partisan straight ticket voting, which tends to hurt third-party candidates. But Amash says he has been hearing a lot of support from citizens and quietly from other Republicans. Well, that's great, but that's not going to get it done. Amash told Tapper about Congress's defunctions, saying, quote, there are lots of Republicans who are saying these things privately, but they aren't saying them publicly, unquote. Now that I absolutely believe, but what can they do? Like I said, it's Trump's party now. You're not going to see any profiles in Courage. You know, even Chuck Grassley of Iowa, you know, this cantankerous old man, and I mean that as a compliment, even though, again, I probably disagree with him on a ton of stuff. But, you know, even he was like, hey, these tariffs are ridiculous. This is crazy. You know, we can't go along with the president on this. This is nuts. This is destroying the farming sector of the economy, you know, because he's from Iowa, so that kind of matters to him. And even Chuck Grassley, in the end, he rolls over and it takes him a little longer. Like I said, he's a cantankerous old man. He doesn't roll over for Trump as easily as the rest of them. But in the end, I'm sure someone in his office says to him, Senator, unless you're planning to retire, and he is, I think, in his 80s, but apparently he runs like 3 miles a day, so he's like some sort of genetic Superman. But I'm sure at some point somebody in his office says, Senator, the tariffs are terrible, and it's destroying the farming sector, and it's destroying our constituents' farms and their livelihoods and their businesses, but they're still going to vote for Trump, and you better not stray. And then even Chuck Grassley, in the end, he rolls over and says, yes, master, tariffs it is. So, all right, so it says here, Amash is maintaining his support for impeachment proceedings against Trump for his alleged attempts to obstruct Mueller's investigation of Russian meddling in the 2016 presidential election. Let's grab this call. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
Hi, Matt. It's Paul.
Paul Cormier. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am well.
Yeah, I'm watching you talk to me.
You are?
Yeah, this technology's fascinating.
Oh, are you experiencing this technology for the first time?
Yes, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. This TV thing with the telephone, it's crazy.
I don't know. I worry that it's all a fad and it's just going to blow over.
Yeah, it could. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
Right.
It's kind of throwing me off, though, that whole delay thing.
Yeah, and I learned recently that the delay on Facebook is much longer than I had thought. Apparently, it is quite a delay.
Yeah, it's you got like I noticed it's like 10 seconds long or something.
Oh, I think it's longer than that.
No, I'm staring right at you right now.
The delay
you're
is
10
only...
seconds ahead of me. I'm looking.
Oh, okay.
I'm looking at you, Matt.
Okay. Well, that's creepy. Oh, no, you're looking at me on Facebook. Never mind.
Yes, I'm looking at you right now.
Okay.
Anyway, listen, I'm looking at, speaking of Facebook, I'm looking at the chat.
Mm-hmm.
And your top fan, Stephen Philbrook, said that he loved the All-Star Show on the 2nd of July. What was that? What was the All-Star Show?
The All-Star Show, that was Peter White of The Morning Show with Peter White, the host. That was yours truly, and that was you, Paul Cormier. It was the three of us, the Three Musketeers, united on The Morning Show for an All-Star Show. Devoid.
Oh, he called
of
that
Eazy-G.
yes. Stephen calls that the All-Star Show?
Well, if you remember, it was Stephen Philbrook who commented on Facebook who said, hey, Eazy-G, just get back. Get back to where you once belonged. Or something. I don't think he actually quoted the song. That was me. But you understand what I'm saying. It was Stephen Philbrook. Stephen is like the puppet master. He controls the various characters who interact with us. Did you hear earlier, though, Peter White said on The Morning Show this morning, he doesn't even care if Eazy-G shows up tomorrow to do his entertainment report. And then Eazy-G called into this show and said he is going to show up tomorrow to do his entertainment report as a means of punishing Peter White. He's going to punish Peter White, and he used that word. Eazy-G is the Punisher.
Wow.
Yes.
He is the Punisher.
He is the Punisher. Very frightening. I hope he doesn't show up in a leather mask or something.
Well, I think somewhere inside that adorable, innocent exterior of Eazy-G, there's an enormous ego that needs to be fed.
Right.
So that's why he's going in tomorrow morning, actually.
I think you're right. Well, I continue to maintain Michael Martineau is clearly the bigger star.
Well, of course he is.
I know. He's a global celebrity. A phenomenon, if you will.
I just wanted to call and welcome you back to the airwaves. I always love to see one of my family shine bright like a star, and it's good to see you back. It was a boring week this past week, so it's nice to see you back, my friend.
Well, thank you, Paul Cormier. I appreciate it, and you're always welcome to stop in anytime, of course.
I'm off to the corner of Varney and Elm to Bill's Donuts to have a cheddar-filled crepe.
Oh, that actually sounds good. I love cheddar.
Yeah, and I love crepes.
Well, there you go. Well, you enjoy
Let's
that.
call the whole thing off.
All right, Paul. Thank you for the call.
All right, have a good one. Talking about your politics and whatever you do over there.
Yes. All right, Paul. Thanks. Bye-bye. All right, the great Paul Cormier. You can often hear Paul on the morning show, and occasionally he stops in here as well. And he's in the Facebook live chat. Oh, my goodness. All right, so we'll finish up on this because we just have a couple minutes left. But so Amash is maintaining his support for impeachment proceedings. Let's see. He also criticized House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, saying that she's making a mistake by closing off, for now, the possibility of impeachment proceedings. So here's what he says about Pelosi. He says, quote, I believe she believes there's a strong case, and if so, she should move forward and make sure that the American people understand what's going on, because people at home aren't reading the Mueller report, unquote. Well, as I've said throughout this, Pelosi's in an impossible position because on the one hand, yes, clearly, I mean, I think the Mueller report's pretty clear that there is a case to be made. And so in theory, yes, they should move forward with impeachment proceedings. And as, John Hopwood points out when he comes on, that would open up the opportunity to do some deeper investigating and so forth. The problem is, and this is what I think Pelosi sees in the long term, the problem is the House can move to impeach, then it goes to the Senate, where the president effectively is tried, in a sense, for his, in this case, his obstructions, and the Republican-controlled Senate will acquit him of that, and that'll be the end of it. And it will probably actually strengthen Trump politically. Then he says, as he's campaigning, look, they tried to impeach me, and I survived that. We survived, and it would probably actually help him. There's the theory that he's actually been kind of spoiling for that he actually wants, because he thinks it'll be politically advantageous, that he actually wants them to try to impeach him. Go ahead and try, because you can't get it done. You can't get it done with a Republican-controlled Senate, and Pelosi clearly knows that. So let's see. Amash's departure from the GOP has caused a new spike of interest in the libertarian-leaning conservative, but the numbers from Google Trends aren't showing the kind of spike he got when he initially broke from the party to lay out the case for impeachment. He has, of course, inspired not a bit of what does it mean really analysis from libertarians, conservatives, and libertarian conservatives. Over at the USA Spectator, Daniel McCarthy brands Amash's form of libertarianism much more naive than what we saw from the likes of Ron and Rand Paul. That's interesting. So here's what McCarthy writes. Again, this is from USA Spectator. Amash has many principles in which he professes to believe, including the unborn's right to life. Right, and remember earlier, if you were listening, I made that comment that most libertarians I know tend to be pro-choice, and that's one of the things where they tend to agree with liberals, but I have known some, not many probably, but some pro-life libertarians, and Amash apparently would be one. Okay, so McCarthy goes on to say, Trump and the populist Republican Party are clearly better than the Democrats or any non-existent third force. And I wouldn't agree with that. But where some of those principles are concerned, with respect to others, such as reducing government spending and power, both major parties do nothing for libertarians like Amash. That is true. But having presence in the GOP can pay dividends even there when the occasion arises, when it means that there are more small government Republicans willing to hash out a compromise like the sequester that limited both domestic and military spending, for example, one of the rare success stories for smaller government in living memory. Okay, then getting back to the Reason article. Two observations here. First of all, Republican voters are showing that they are not terribly interested in cutting federal spending in any significant way. That's true. I mean, that's the other thing where, this predates, oh, wow, we are really almost out of time. Let me drop that link into the Facebook live chat for those who want it. But, the Republican Party deciding, oh, never mind about that whole fiscal conservatism thing, that actually predates Trump by a couple of presidencies. Actually, Greg Moore from Americans for Prosperity, rather, who's been on the show. You know, he even said Bill Clinton was really the last fiscally conservative president this country ever had. George W. Bush was no fiscal conservative, racking up huge bills for a couple of wars and not even including that in the federal budget. You just put it on the credit card and the taxpayers will have to fund it. And, you know, and then after that we had Obama, and now we have Trump, and, you know, we cut taxes and we don't cut spending, and, you know, there is no fiscal conservatism anymore. There literally is none. It doesn't exist. It is a dead policy position. And like I said, too, you know, Trump certainly isn't concerned about it. And it's another thing where the entire Republican Party just kind of shrugs and says, okay, that's fine. I guess there's no such thing as fiscal conservatism anymore. But, you know, they do that thing I was talking about much earlier in the show where the narrative shifts. The narrative will shift mid-sentence. Oh, yeah, you know, we can spend as much as we want. Deficits don't matter. Dick Cheney said deficits don't matter. Oh, wait a minute. What do you mean you want to spend money to help poor people? You can't do that. We're going to blow a hole in the budget. You know, it's just, it's all inconsistent nonsense. It's craziness. But that's one of the fun things about politics, I guess. Makes doing a show like this fun. All right, we are absolutely out of time. Don't forget to tune into the morning show tomorrow morning. I'll be very interested to hear Eazy-G, Eric Gagnon go in and punish the host, Peter White, for his comments earlier. And thank you to Paul Cormier for calling. Who did we hear from? Somebody called earlier in the show, too. Eazy-G, of course, called, yes. It all gets to be a blur, my friends. If you missed any part of today's show, it'll be up in just a little bit at WMNHradio.org. And we are out of time. That's it for me for now. I will talk at y'all a little bit later. Bye, everybody.